Okay, welcome to ASP.NET, everybody. The course is starting tonight, and I'm going to begin by going through the syllabus and walking you through all the things within it that are important for you to know. If you've had me as a teacher before, you kind of know some of the approaches that I use, and it'll not be anything new to you. Those that are new to me in the classroom, I do some things differently than other instructors. And not anything particularly strange, like my scoring system is different, the way I treat late assignments and things of that nature. I like to think that I'm pretty flexible when it comes to working through issues that you guys might run into, and we'll talk about that as we get to it. So if you want to follow along with the syllabus, please navigate to the course shell, and then on the left-hand side here, you're going to see that there's a link to the syllabus. You'll discover that I do not print things on paper as a general rule of thumb. So if you're looking at a hard copy of the syllabus for your own records, that's up to you to print. Well, first of all, I'm going to say welcome to the brand new technical building, third floor IT department. I was here, Thursday and Friday of last week, right before they finished everything, and it was a state of chaos. There was so much going on. There were probably, I kid you not, like 50 technicians running around wiring things, putting things together. And I'm in here today, and I go, wow, they did a nice job. It actually looks really good in this room. This one seems like it's actually done. Not all of them are necessarily in that state. All right, as I was telling everybody here in the classroom, my name is Takis Kinnis, and everybody likes to call me Ty, so I please ask that you call me that when you address me. If you need to locate me here on campus, our faculty offices, when they're done remodeling them, are right at the end of the hall in room 312. It's just by that entryway there on the west side of the building. My phone number and email address are listed here. You probably want to get that stored in your address book. And a good way to do it with the Gmail system that we have is if you find me on the system and add me to your circles. That initiates Hangout communications and email communications in a little bit more smooth fashion. And if you're not sure how to do that, just ask me and I'll show you. It's a pretty easy little process. Now, I know a lot of you might drive a distance to come here. I certainly do. And if you ever need to meet with me and you're not here, you can always use some of the alternative technologies that we have in place. There is a collaboration mechanism built directly into our course shell called Blackboard Collaborate that we use. Google Hangouts is probably the tool I use most often, and there's several others, but that allows us basically to share screens. So if you had a question about something, and this is really true with coding, like you're writing some code, sending me a snippet of code and saying what's wrong with this, it's a little bit easier if I can just get you on the line, look at your screen over the internet, and just coach you through fixing something, because more often than not it's like, oh, you forgot a semicolon, and that's enough to break the whole program. Yeah, it is, and it's weird at first, when you do any of this like video conferencing stuff, because it's very uncomfortable to look at yourself, but you can mute the camera as well as the microphone. So you don't have to. I mean, even now that I'm recording this program here has a little thing where I could put my picture in the corner. Oh, no, that's not happening. Because all I would do is stare at that the whole time, not pay attention to what I'm doing. But the technology becomes very transparent after you use it a few times. So if we ever get to that situation where you need help, that's one really excellent way to do it. I will have office hours here on campus as well, and I should probably point those out. Those are in the course shell, and I think I put it under resources if I remember right. Right here at the bottom of the resources page. So I click this link here, and then you'll see way at the bottom I just have a little snapshot image of what my life looks like this semester. The two yellow boxes that you see on the screen are my office hours here at the Racine campus. I do have office hours down at the Burlington campus, but those formally are reserved for my SharePoint students out in the cohort there. However, I am available during those time frames during the day. Even though it's blocked out solid blue, it's too complicated to put into like a 5-day thing to list. So I just opt for that. But usually real early in the morning, around lunchtime, and then later in the afternoon when I'm out there, those times are usually open for communication. Just pop me an email and say, hey, are you available for a hangout? And there's a good chance that I will be. All right, so if you need to see me in person though, and you do plan on coming here during one of these time slots, I do strongly recommend that you call or email ahead or something just so that you can get my dedicated attention, because sometimes I get busy or other people are in, so I'd like to give priority to whoever prearranges. All right, back to the syllabus. All right, I have the course number listed here as a 3-credit class. You guys obviously found us here, although T302, I'm working on getting that changed to this room, which is T308, so hopefully it'll stick that way. Here's all the key dates for the course. Yep, this ends on April 20th. That's when our spring semester ends, on the 21st of April. That's really early, if you're used to like traditional school schedules. But it's also kind of nice because the IT department also is getting an extra week break. So when the spring semester ends, we get 3 weeks before you guys have to come back. So if you guys are planning a vacation, end of April, first 2 weeks of May, great time to go down south. Weather's really beautiful then. All right, financial aid census date, good news. All of you guys have already passed that hurdle, because just by virtue of being here, basically that's there. If you don't show up by the 22nd, basically you're no longer in the course. So not a problem for any of you. If you choose to voluntarily drop, you can drop up until the 31st of this month. And then following that time frame, I can drop you if I see that you're not here or not doing anything. I've never had to do that so far being here at Gateway, and I anticipate, just looking at this bunch, that won't be the case. We will have a midterm, and the midterm date is towards the end of February. That's the date at which I need to post it into the system. That's like my deadline date to do that. So usually the weekend following, or the week following that deadline date, is when they'll be available in the system. If you want to withdraw, you have till the end of March. You guys aren't going to do that either, are you? All right, let's take a look at what we're going to learn in this class. Basically, we're going to be looking at a Microsoft-based technology for developing web pages called ASP.NET. ASP.NET, on its own, in terms of a acronym or a statement, really isn't a language. So we're not learning a language, you guys. Well, we're actually learning a couple different languages, actually several different languages all at once. Because really, ASP.NET is a framework. And you're going to see that there's syntax that goes with that framework, there's programming language that goes with it, and it integrates with all the other web technologies that you guys have already been learning. So for example, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, it is assumed you guys are on board with that already. We'll talk about it a little bit in the early chapters, but I'm not teaching you HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'm just expecting that you know it. If your skills are a little rusty on it, what I'll do, the first thing I would do is say, go out and do some reading. What's a great place for somebody to learn about doing web authoring on the web without knowing much of anything? What's your de facto site, folks? Yeah, very good. W3 Schools. This is one you probably want to take note of if you're not aware of it. But if you need to brush up on any of your skills, this is the site to go to. The organization that runs this site, the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, they are the ones that are responsible for establishing all the web language standards for the internet. So the HTML5 that you're expected to know, the standards for it are developed by this organization. So what better place to go and learn about the technology than right here? There's no embarrassment to going here. I go here all the time. I don't pretend to remember every little bit of every language and code and statement. That's how memories are. It's like, how do you do that one thing? I know it's kind of like this, and you just Google it, look it up, and you usually end up here. So if you need to brush up on any of those skills, this is a good repository. The other place that I would recommend that you go to, if that's the case, and there is a link once again in our course shell, is lynda.com. And I'm hoping you guys have visited that site. As Gateway students, we have complete free access to that website. And if you've ever visited, you'll see that lynda.com is really kind of a school unto itself. And if you look at the library of courses here and the categories that they have, if I just like go down here to web, see if it cooperates, and then just look at all the different topics, these are all complete courses in whatever topic that you're looking for. So you can go on here and there's probably like, I'm going to say at least a half dozen complete courses on ASP.NET in various flavors, versions, and frameworks that they work in. And what's cool about that is this is a really expensive service. If you were to like buy into this on your own, I think it's like $50 a month to be able to access the whole site, and there's like thousands of courses here. So once again, if your skills are weak or you want to like augment what we're learning here in class, or you got that kind of time on your hand where you can sit down and you can woodshed and really take your skills to the next level, this is a really good resource. I use it myself very often. I might not do a whole course, but I might be like, now how do I, blah, 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 and I'll go here and I'll look up a couple of videos just as reference and go, okay, well, I see how he's doing it, I understand. And sometimes that's all it takes. But it's an excellent resource. Those of you here in the room, I know there's a few of you that have used it before. Really can't say enough about it as being like a great resource that we have, and I'd like to see you utilize it. One of my SharePoint people today was like, does our lynda.com account go away after we graduate? And the way that this works, as long as you have a valid gateway email account, you can get into this service for free. So the one thing I recommended is like, well, after you graduate, maybe you should take like basket weaving or something, or take a motorcycle class or something. You keep that email address alive and keep getting access to this because, $40, $50 a month, it adds up pretty quickly. But it's a great service, highly recommended. All right, as far as more information on ASP.NET, in Chapter 1, when we get going on talking about the technology and actually into a couple of the other chapters, I'll start to explain to you how the framework works, how the languages work, and how the tools work, because we will be working in Visual Studio. And I don't know if it's been a while for you guys to have used that product or not, and I know a lot of web people, they only touch it, they come in and they do their intro to programming class, and then a lot of times they never touch it again. But ASP.NET requires a Microsoft platform, and the best tool really for ASP.NET is Visual Studio. There are other tools you can use, but none of them even come close to what Visual Studio can do. And it's kind of weird for web developers to think about using Visual Studio as an authoring tool, but the truth is, since version 2012, Visual Studio is an excellent web authoring platform, especially for any Microsoft technology. All right, and we will talk more about Visual Studio. I want to make sure everybody's got that available to them, on their own, as opposed to just being here at school. The other thing that you should know is the material that we're teaching you in this class will help to prepare you, at least in part, to get ready to take a Microsoft certification exam for ASP.NET. So if you were serious about pursuing a certification, this class would help you in that regard. In our SharePoint program, we typically offer a certification exam review class that follows this class that the students take to prepare for the exam. I will kid you not, the ASP.NET exam is a very difficult one. However, the SharePoint program and I think the regular MCSE program, if you can pass that and you can get certified by Microsoft, it's kind of like writing yourself into a job, because the certifications are highly valued. And they're valued because they're challenging. So if you ever want to walk that path and try the certification, talk to me and I'll help you with materials and point you to websites that'll get you going in that direction. All right, we're going to learn how to create websites and really websites that extend beyond being a website and become an application. And I was having this discussion in class the other day with my students. What is the difference between a website and an application? Right? Yeah, so it's a good question. I want you to ponder that before I actually give you the answer to it. All right, so these are the things that we are going to try to accomplish during the course of the class. I'll try to make sure that we do all of those things. The book, I know a few of you have it sitting there. That's something you will need to do the coursework, because basically We step through the book page by page. That's the nature of this course. We work the exercises that are in the chapter, and I help guide you through it. I also have you working on your own website project using the same technology. So you get a little bit of like guided help, and then a little bit of like the strings are cut, you're on your own, let's see what you can do. So it's going to be a combination of those two things. As I mentioned, you need Visual Studio 2012 or better. If you're loading this up on your own machine at home, right, and you don't have Visual Studio already, I would probably recommend that you just jump right to the 2015 version. It is completely free, you don't need to pay for it. If you are not comfortable with looking at screens within Visual Studio that don't exactly match what's in our book, then you load up 2012. Because there are some subtle differences between 2015 and 2012, enough so that you would go, well, I can't find this in my Visual Studio. So if that's the case, stick with 2012. If you feel pretty, savvy with, Visual Studio, 2015 is definitely the way to go. In the classroom, I will use 2012 just so that it matches up with the book. Windows 7 or higher, web browsers. All right, let's talk about grading. The way that I assign points in the class to assignments is on a pretty primitive little 100-point system. Basically, the way that I grade things is I will give you an assignment, and for example, if the assignment is worth 5 points, that is 5% of your grade. So every point that you earn is 1 percentage point towards getting to your goal. 100 total points in the class. Okay, so you can calculate pretty easily if you start earning points on your assignments, how many points you have and what grade you'll be sitting at. And frankly, the way that I grade things is I will give you a set of criteria for every assignment. And I'll say, complete this exercise, make sure you do this, 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 and that, turn it in by this date. And if you do all those things successfully and everything works, it's in on time, you have all your points. It's really just about as simple as that. So when I start grading things and returning them, if you see something like nice work, right, or good, or nothing, and you got all your points, you're fine. It's when you start seeing like a sentence or two or a paragraph or a couple of paragraphs, that's when you start to worry a little bit, I suppose. But usually the point of that for me is not to focus on like necessarily providing negative feedback, but if you got it right, you got it right. I'm not going to spend all day trying to tell you, hey, you did it right and this is why. But I want to point out the things that do need improvement and work and adjustment, because very often with this kind of stuff, it's very little things that get it to not work. And any of you that have coded before know that, right? It doesn't take much to mess something up. So, I'm sorry? It happens all the time. Well, believe it or not, when you do this stuff a lot for a living, and students will always marvel at the fact that I'll just glance at their code and I can see the missing semicolon. I don't know why my eye just catches it, just because I look at code all the time. And over time, you guys will get to be the same way. It just takes a little while. It just takes experience. But let's also talk about the fact that if you guys are in the degree program, that you have to earn a grade of C or better in this class to have it count towards your degree. And you guys should know that. Other teachers should be telling you that. And what that means in terms of the points you need to earn 74 points in this class to get to that C. You get like 73, well, guess what? You're retaking it. My goal is that you guys not only exceed that threshold, but get solidly up into the B's and the A's. There's no reason why you can't walk out of here with an A. I'm not going to say this class is not that hard, but you know what? This class is not that hard. It really isn't. It's kind of in the format of tutorial and, self-exploration of a project. The way that you would really mess things up is basically don't show up, don't do the work, don't communicate, turn things in super late. That's how you mess up in this class. So now that we're on the topic of late, I know late's coming up here, I have a policy that I've been using the last few semesters, and I think it works pretty well. Generally speaking, you want to get all your points, you do the work right, and get it in on time by the timestamp indicated in Blackboard, right? Makes sense? This is when it's due, turn it in by then. Now, if you happen to be a little bit late, right, you know, like our system, by default, if I say it's due Friday, it'll say Friday 11:59 p.m. And then you turned it in at 12:01 a.m., right? I do know there's instructors out there that won't even take it. And I know other instructors will be really harsh and really downgrade you a lot just for being a couple minutes late. But I always tell people, you know, I'm not rushing home at midnight to check to see if you turned it in and start grading at midnight, you know. So I use those deadlines with a little bit of leeway. Now, if it's like a day late or 2 days late, you know, or something like that, you are going to get a point reduction. It's pretty minimal if it's slightly late. When you get to the point that's a week late, you're going to see a pretty good chunk gone. Probably 10% to 20%. If it's more than 2 weeks late in a 15-week course, you're going to get, at best, 50% of the points. So if you're in the habit of not getting things in on time, and I get these students once in a while, I had one last semester, always showed up to class, always was engaged, didn't turn anything in. I'm not talking about you. But didn't turn anything in until after the class was done and all the deadlines had passed. And you did the work just fine, but you know, couldn't get up to that C. So you don't want to get in that situation. 50% on all the assignments does not add up to an A. Right? So get things in on time. But here's my caveat. Sure. Here's my caveat. If you are working on it and it's just not quite done and it's already due, turn it in on time before the due date, and then I will let you finish it, update it, correct it, you know, whatever the case may be, and turn it in and not receive a late penalty, provided you turn something in by that due date. If you don't turn something in by the due date, you don't have that option. Simple as that. Okay, so that's my way of kind of trying to be flexible on it. It shows me that you're putting in the effort. And you guys know with code, right? I said one semicolon can break the whole thing, and that might be the case, that you're just not seeing something that's broken. Now, we're going to be working in Visual Studio, so the one semicolon missing thing really doesn't apply so much because it'll catch it. But it doesn't mean that your logic is correct. So you might have a logic problem, right? Okay. We will have exams in this class. We will have a midterm and we will have a final. They're worth a total of 15% of your grade. The midterm is 5% and the final is 10%. My exams are very difficult, right? They're not. I'm going to tell you right now, my exams are not difficult. I always tell people this, they're there to test your basic knowledge. I want to make sure that you picked up on all the key concepts that we're talking about here. They're not here to punish you. If you cannot pass my exam, you might want to consider a different career path. It's kind of like that. So don't freak out to tests. I know people get in these panic modes with them. You're like, oh my God, there's a test, I better study. And you like study for hours and hours and hours. You know, but my tests are open note, open book, open internet. Go ahead, talk to your friend. I really don't care. And oh, by the way, you do them on your own time, not in class. We don't waste class time doing tests. Okay, so you guys will do fine on them. Please don't put undue stress on yourself on those exams. Be sure you show up. That's a good thing. Be engaged. If you can't make it, maybe an email saying that you can't be here, like Chris is not here tonight, but he sent me an email. He said that he's sick, and I believe him because I know Chris always shows up. So just send me a message, let me know what your situation is, whether you're late or whatever. Also, folks, keep in mind that if you can't make it to class, right, you're like, let's say, genuinely sick, but you still want to participate, you can always connect to us online. I'll initiate a Hangout or Collaborate or something where you can tap into the classroom live. If that does not appeal to you, and it does not appeal to some people, I am recording things like I am now, so you're really not going to miss a thing. So you can always go back and watch the recordings. If you are in the situation here, I skipped the incomplete section, where you're getting towards the end of the course. You've done a great job so far. You've always showed up. You've done your work. You have a passing grade. 80% of your coursework is complete, but something happens, and it does happen. Like, for example, I had I had a couple of them this past semester, but I had one lady having a child, complications in pregnancy, NICU, all that kind of stuff. Okay, well, there's a valid reason to give somebody an incomplete, right? She wasn't slacking on her work. She just had a situation come up that she had to deal with, right? So I understand those things, but you have to communicate them. So if you get into that situation, you talk to me. We'll try to find a way to work something out. An incomplete, basically all that does is it gives you extended time to complete the work and pass the class. But you should also be aware that sometimes classes feed into another class. So if you're taking like Java 1, for example, and you've signed up for Java 2 next semester, and you don't pass Java 1 before that one starts, you don't get to go into that one. So that's something that you want to keep in mind too. And really, incompletes are only offered in situations where there are extenuating circumstances, not because you just didn't get around to doing the work. So, and I don't, once again, I don't anticipate that to be the case with anybody in here at all. All right, make sure you guys check your gateway email. I don't think that's a problem in here either. If you're not in the habit of checking it, the reason I say that is because anytime I will do an announcement through the course shell, like the one I sent out yesterday about class starting today, that's how it's going to be delivered. So one thing you might want to do is, if you don't check your gateway email a lot, is go into the gateway email and set up forwarding to some other account, just so you know something's coming in. But that'll be my primary communication mechanism with you. And in terms of receiving communication, that's probably my favorite method as well. The truth is, I'm in the office so rarely. If you called that phone, it would be like lightning strikes miracle that I would actually pick it up. But voicemails do go to my email, so I will see it. But email is generally better. Even, frankly, Google Hangouts is good too. If you want to text me on Google Hangouts, that works. That usually pops up on my phone, depending on how you're connecting. All right, one thing I want to point out to you guys as well, you may know this already, is we have here at the Racine campus, and they have one at Kenosha and Elkhorn campuses as well, what we call our Learning Success Center, which is where disability support services are located. And I don't want you to think that there's like a negative connotation with any of that, because really it's a support system that's there for all of us to use. That's where tutors are located. If you really have like some sort of genuine disability, either physical and learning or whatever, those are the people that you talk to help facilitate things. And the other thing that I'll tell you is, if you're here on campus and you need a quiet place to study, that's the place to go. It's better than down in the Student Life Center or up here somewhere. And there's tutors on hand that if you have a problem, chances are somebody will come over and help you with some things. So seek out their help if you need it. If you guys ever run into any technology issues, this is how you get a hold of our support department. You can call them, or it's better, frankly, to go on the website. They're very, very fast. If you guys have ever put in a ticket or seen me put one in the classroom. When I started classes here Tuesday night, I went into the room and I couldn't log into the desktop. And I'm like, class is starting in a couple minutes and I can't log in. 5 minutes later, somebody's there connecting me up to the domain, and they took care of it. So they're pretty good that way. So I always encourage you to contact them. We also have a new addition to our syllabus as part of our standard template, which is this incident reporting system. So if you see anything weird happening on campus, somebody walks in with a gun, or something gets stolen, or somebody suspicious is lurking about, or any sort of weird scenario, that's a way that you can put in a report, and then it goes into the channels of the system here, and whoever's responsible for it will take care of it. If you ever have an immediate need for security, there's phones all over the place. Security's extension is 6208 here on campus. You can always dial 911 too. in a pinch. So, all right, folks, that is the syllabus in a nutshell. If you guys have any questions about it, let me know. If you do not, what I would like you to do is go back to the course shell, click on the discussion board link here on the left, and you'll see there's a discussion board forum for acknowledging the syllabus, and I see some of you have already been busy acknowledging. It is a required activity, and you do get a grade for it, so please go ahead and do it. You want the points. And then at your leisure, I want you also to go into the introductions discussion board and kind of introduce yourself to your classmates. I will, after a short break, well, we'll take one pretty soon. I would like everybody to stand up and introduce themselves. I know some people know each other by virtue of being in classes together before, but some of you don't. And it's good to know the people you're in the classroom with, because chances are you'll be in more classes together. And it's good to have a network of people to contact. That's also true for online people. So if you guys aren't bashful about sharing your personal contact information, go ahead, put phone numbers, email addresses, texts, Facebook links, whatever suits you in that forum to contact people. It's not a bad idea to have somebody to bounce ideas off of when you're working on things. All right, so if there's no more questions, I'm going to terminate this video and we're going to move on to other things. Any questions, anybody? All right, this video ends here.